Namaste. My name is Preity Upala, and I am a global thought leader and a multimedia personality. Welcome to my podcast, The Preity Experience. Join me as I explore some of the most fascinating and crucial issues that affect our world today. I take a unique global perspective on these issues, and the very foundation of my insights is humanity and spirituality. I'm Preity Upala, and welcome to the Preity Experience.
US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is to travel to India for the third India-US 2+2 dialogue. That is going to happen in 3 days from now. That is going to be his second Asian trip in less than a month. That would also take him to Maldives and Sri Lanka and Indonesia. Now, the Ministry of External Affairs said in a statement that India would be hosting the third India-US 2+2 ministerial dialogue, October 27th in New Delhi. Discussions will include how they can cooperate to maintain a free and open Indo-Pacific. The US has further added that the meetings will also include discussions on how free nations can work together to thwart the threats that are posed by the Chinese Communist Party. Mike Esper, who is the Secretary of Defense of the United States, has said that India will be the most consequential partner for the United States in the Indo-Pacific in the 21st century. Okay, let's discuss this in greater detail. Joining me on the broadcast, Ambassador Deepak Vora. Great to have you on the show. You're sitting over here right in New York. What's the pulse with especially Trump and Biden going ahead repeatedly raking up the India issue? And Desis are the ones, the Indian Desis are the ones who perhaps are going to swing the vote in one candidate's favor or the other.
You're absolutely right. Thank you very much for this opportunity to learn from you and from the other wonderful people on your panel. It's absolutely clear that the 2 million voters of the Indian American community are going to play a crucial role apart from their financial power. The numbers themselves in the so-called swing or battleground states are very, very important. And America has this peculiar system of an electoral college with winner take all. You might win by one vote in a particular state, but all the votes in the electoral college that go to elect the president will go to the winner. So some people say that, as happened in 2016, at the national level, Mrs. Clinton was ahead by 2 million votes, but she lost the race for the presidency. This has happened before. I believe, and I'm sticking my neck out, I know, by saying this, that it seems to be ab ki baar Trump Sarkar. That seems to be the feeling at this time, because he's handling things extremely well.
Absolutely.
I believe that he's playing to their fear of China. The coronavirus, the Chinese virus attack is now reducing somewhat in its intensity. And if you talk to people on the street, as I do every day, I've just returned from my morning quadrilateral, so to speak, with people from different ethnicities who I walk with in Washington Square Park. Well, they all say just one thing to us: look, now that we are friends, let's not get mad at China, let's get even with China. So let's
get even with China. The motto of Trump administration, even as there are parties and the press that is aligning to the Democrats and the Republicans, as the case may be, putting on fresh allegations as to who's having these increased businesses with the Chinese government over there. And then also Biden's son coming to the picture, the Hunter Biden politics, the corruption politics that is also going ahead and playing it out in all its glory. Preity also joins me on the broadcast. And Preity, share your perspective, especially with regards to Quad. Just a few days ahead of the elections, Mike Pompeo, the right-hand man of President Trump, coming into India, coming into New Delhi, and then going ahead and signing those strategic pacts, including the latest one that we're getting to know, that satellite data pact is something that India and the United States are going to be exploring and deciding upon and forging their decisions with regards to that. But also let's talk about every single time Mike Pompeo goes ahead and makes a statement in the public arena, it is anti-China. Whether it be about safeguarding the seas, whether it be about the Indo-Pacific region and the safety and security of it, whether it be about the environmental damage that China has gone ahead and done because of its greenhouse emissions. That was the statement that had been made by him only today. So how is this playing out? Obviously, this is a rhetoric which is extremely anti-China, on your face anti-China, and very reminiscent of the Trump administration and President Trump, who says everything on your face, does not hide back, and is not diplomatic at all. And it's serving India's purpose. But it's serving India's purpose at this point in time. But because somewhere down the line, our diplomats and our leaders are still a little bit hesitant when it comes to calling out China and calling spade a spade.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. Lovely to be here. 2 weeks is a long time in politics, and I think these last 2 weeks leading up to the election will be the most intense and action-filled 2 weeks, if you will. And I'm suspecting there will be some protests and riots and a bit civil unrest as well. I think the Trump campaign is taking this foreign policy very seriously. They're last 2 weeks to really drive home the message that they are the party that will counter the great public enemy number one, China, and the unleasher of the China virus on the world, and especially the U.S. citizens. I think the Quad is extremely important, and that's independent of the election. I think the Quad is a long time coming. It's great that it's finally formalized. It's the new Asian NATO, if you will, and I think one that will be far more effective, to be quite honest. I think Secretary Mike Pompeo made a great statement when he said that this meeting will be one where they will discuss a broad range of bilateral topics. So not just what's happening in the Indo-Pacific seas, but other shared threats as well. He said, other than maintaining a free and open Indo-Pacific, I'm sure my meetings will also include discussions on how free nations can work together to thwart threats posed by the Chinese Communist Party. So he's making it so clear in those words. I think this is music to the ears of the citizens of America at large, but especially the Republicans, especially the Trump voters. They want to see a strong leader. And this is the time to be, really divisive and show how he is this great leader, as opposed to Biden, who, quite frankly, has not had a great record with China. I suspect in the next 2 weeks, his son Hunter Biden's, Hunter Biden, situation with China is going to really come up in the public eye more so. I think mainstream media has no choice but to shed some light on it, at least to discuss it. That will not make him look very good, because I think he's had a record of being softer on China, and he does not seem to be that candidate that's really going to be firm and take on this this great enemy. So I think this does work out well for the president. I do think it's going to be Upki Bar Trump Sarkar again. But let's see how the American people vote.
Out of the 4 panelists, I have
One-third has already
two of them
voted.
backing Trump wholeheartedly. Upki Bar Trump Sarkar. Joyita, what do you have to say? Is Quad going to be impacted with regards to who comes to power, first of all, in America? And what do you make of the whole situation, especially of Mike Pompeo and Mark Esper coming down to India, Delhi, just days before the elections the results are going to come out, the counting is going to happen. Very, very important.
Megha, this was supposed to take place, it got delayed because of the coronavirus pandemic. So, but having said that, it's very significant that this is happening even just, I think, less than a week's time of the election taking place. So obviously it shows the kind of importance that the United States places to its relationship with India. And this particular agreement that is going to be signed, most likely, that is the BECA, which is the third foundational agreement, which will deepen India-US cooperation. And it's very, very significant. Having said that, I think also, yes, let us hope that the Quad will be talked about. If India has been able to shed its diffidence, habitual characteristic diffidence that has marked India's foreign policy for a very, very long time now. This pretense of being non-aligned, non-aligned, which actually meant being aligned with the Soviet Union, from out of which we have come out, of course. But the thing is, so that kind of a pretense of, sitting on the fence, waffling, this has been, sorry, Ambassador Hora, I am being very, very critical, but, this has been a factor of Indian foreign policy establishment.
Okay.
So let us hope, but the very fact that, Australia was called for the Malabar exercise, that itself was a huge, I would say, step as far as India is concerned. And also India is going for bilateral naval exercise with Australia. So that itself shows that perhaps India will not be averse to the formalization of the Quad. When it takes place, we don't know. And what happens if there is a change in government in the US, we don't know as yet. Whether Joe, because you see, there is already, if you follow the kind of commentary that is coming out of the US, what is happening, people who are more pro-Joe Biden, they are already talking in terms of, maybe US can soften its stand on China. I read an article in the South China Morning Post where they are talking about, how China may bounce back if Joe Biden comes to power. So you see, what happens to the Quad if Joe Biden comes? Frankly, we don't yet know.
Okay. Let's also rope in Pramit Pal Chaudhary. And Pramit, what do you make, first of all, of the entire situation? When exactly can we go ahead and see the formalization of Quad? It's been a really long time. 13 years was when it was actually raised. And China had showcased its protest and anger against it, because of which it had died down. And again, with the Malabar naval exercise, with Australia also being included, this is obviously a right step that showcases the intent of all the four nations to going ahead and formalizing it and going ahead and making it a more concrete alliance this time around. When is it going to happen is anybody's guess, but we would obviously like, in fact, people from across the world, including India, United States, Australia, Japan, we would all go ahead and look that this must happen sooner than later, because this is, at the end of the day, a deterrence policy to contain China.
Yes, the Quad is still a body in a road under construction, if you wish. The key point that we should stress about the Quad, I think, is that we're still uncertain whether there is a domestic consensus among all of its members. In other words, if every time there's a change of government, these are four, after all, democracies, every time there's an election, will there be a change in policy? The first Quad collapsed because there was a change of government in Australia, and then Labour government walked out of the Quad, saying that we're not interested in something that looks like an alliance against China. We've seen in India, I don't think there is a problem. We've seen a consensus on the Quad that has been consistent no matter which government has been in power. Japan, interestingly enough, we expect there should be no change, given that the present Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga is a sort of a protege of Shinzo Abe. But one of the reasons that the Quad foreign ministers meeting was moved from New Delhi to Tokyo was to, in effect, lock in Suga's government to ensure that their position on China and the Quad did not waver. The next test, of course, will now be the US election. If a Biden administration comes to power, while the core foreign policy team of Biden, Blinken, Donilon, Carl, Campbell, and others have been very clear about their view that America is in a sort of long-term confrontation with China. They have not been very clear about where they see the Quad into this policy. Other than Michel Flournoy, who is likely to be the Pentagon chief in a Biden presidency, none of them have actually mentioned the Quad in their speeches or in their interviews so far. So this indicates that they're uncertain about what role the Quad will do. In addition, the Biden team has indicated they want to slash America's defense budget dramatically. If the Quad especially given what we know, as you mentioned, bringing in Australia into the Malabar exercises, is supposed to have a large military component, then obviously cutting the defense budget drastically will make that much more difficult to affect. America still has enough money. America's defense budget is 16 times the size of China's, for example.
But China is growing by leaps and bounds when it comes to its naval exercises, when it comes to going ahead and fortifying its army and the Air Force. But Ambassador Deepak Vora, you want to come in over here, especially with regards to this confusion that has continued to be for the past several years, a decade and more, about Quad formation, about whether Australia should go ahead and combine its forces with India, even though there have been on the sidelines these bilateral exercises between India and Australia that have continued. Japan has continued to pressure Australia and pressure India. India showing opposition in the past few years. And now suddenly this formation of the Quad, not so suddenly but a gradual process, only going ahead and being perhaps hastened because of what China has been up to.
With so much noise and action on the quadrilateral security dialogue of the Quad, it is useful to remember that it arose from the 2004 tsunami, something that is often forgotten, and not from any actions by China. India's rescue mission, if you'd recall, in the Indian Ocean, was coordinated with 3 other nations involved in such operation: United States, Japan, and Australia. So in clear view was India's ability to put such an impressive fleet within days to assist its neighbors, maritime neighbors like Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Indonesia. 32 ships and 5,500 soldiers, you might remember, ma'am. We were carrying out magnificent relief efforts in Tamil Nadu and Andaman and Nicobar Islands, even as we were helping our neighbors. So the seed of maritime cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region was sown by the tsunami. Now, it was created by an act of God, the tsunami, and the Quad is being propelled by the actions of a godless nation, China. This is where the partnership becomes essential, ma'am. China's unacceptable behavior, I think it has ensured that Quad becomes a very effective partnership, resilient, active, strong. Quad has willy-nilly become the core of the free and open Indo-Pacific vision that every country has. And I think we are going to have very, very tough, it's going to develop a very tough security-oriented core with a softer and inclusive, as one of my colleagues described it, exoskeleton that prioritizes the developmental agenda. One important thing, ma'am, that the Quad Plus format, as and when it comes, and as Ms. Basu, Mr. Chaudhary, and Ms. Upala said, that it will cater to our region's economic needs. It must, including infrastructure, connectivity, and capacity building. Otherwise, without generous alternatives to this nonsense called the Belt and Road Initiative, many countries, ma'am, would continue to be drawn to China like moths to a flame.
Okay, all right. From it, I also want to, since this has been an important point of Mike Pompeo going ahead and visiting New Delhi, but he's also going to be visiting Sri Lanka, and he's going to be visiting Maldives, and he's going to be visiting Indonesia. Now, while Maldives has continued to showcase its positivity and support to India, Sri Lanka has been at the cusp of being wooed by the Chinese. And although Sri Lanka continues to say, and Colombo continues to say, that our alignment with India continues to be very, very strong, there have been these cracks that have been visible. How is the United States effect going to draw upon the likes of Sri Lanka and Indonesia that continue to be pressured and wooed by China on the sidelines?
In the case of the Indian Ocean island states, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Seychelles, to some degree even Madagascar and Mauritius, there's a straightforward contest there between India and China. And at the heart of it lies the fact that we have stronger cultural and long-term military relationships with most of these countries. On the other hand, China is now pouring in a lot more money into these countries that we have.
Yes, absolutely.
That's one of the reasons why you'll notice that in our bilateral joint statements with the Japanese over the past few years, we are increasingly talking about cooperation with India and Japan in third countries, including Sri Lanka and various island nations in the Indian Ocean, because the Japanese bring in money. They bring in money and technology and on a level that we still don't have. Bringing in the Americans boosts that. Obviously, America is still militarily the most powerful nation in the Indian Ocean with the Fifth Fleet, especially naval power. They are diplomatically important. And we're starting to see a return, if you wish, of strategic aid by the United States. There's been they created a new development finance corporation, merging the old OPIC and the Exim Bank, with the specific purpose of giving money and financing development aid to counter China. They've created something called the Blue Dot Network with Japan and Australia. India is considering joining, we're still debating, which is about infrastructure building, again in contest against the BRI. So America is now starting to put in these various instruments, economic instruments, against China. So bringing in Pompeo, visiting these areas is very important.
Okay, all right. Okay, Joy, that's the same question to you. Very important. US going ahead and showcasing its heft economically, militarily as well. Also helping India's cause with the visit that is being made by Mike Pompeo when it comes to especially Sri Lanka and Indonesia.
Well, when it comes to Sri Lanka in particular, you see, Sri Lanka is very important for India. I mean, you can't have the Chinese setting up some kind of a base right in its basically in the neighborhood. I mean, it's right there. Hambantota, of course, in spite of the fact that they do not want any sort of military, ships coming in and all, the Chinese did try. And if you look at the string of pearls theory, what they are trying to do is that China is trying to encircle India. And Sri Lanka is very much a part of it, very much a part of it. There is a Burma this side, there's Sri Lanka, there will be all these small island nations that are there, then Pakistan, there's Djibouti. So all these places are there. So the thing is, yeah, I totally agree. You see, at the same time, India does not have that kind of money. But at the same time, you see, there's a lot of speculation in Sri Lanka because particularly the Mahinda Rajapaksa, the Rajapaksa brothers, they are, in spite of the noises they are making about, we have to be neutral, and they did come out with a statement. I think their foreign minister made a statement that we are not against India. Recently, there was this statement. They are very pro-China. Let's not make any mistake about that. They are extremely pro-China, the two brothers. And if you're thinking in terms of money and certain policies that have been taken, say for example, policies that have been implemented by the younger brother, who is the president right now, it requires a lot of money in terms of, say for example, offering tax cuts and SOPs that have been given to industry and all that. It requires a lot of money. So if India is not going to be able to provide that kind of money, who gives that money? China gives that money. And you see, so basically they are also worried about, something starting in the northern areas of Sri Lanka, about whether the Tamil problem again becomes a problem or not. So let us hope Mike Pompeo's visit in particular to Sri Lanka in particular, it shows, because ultimately what they need, Sri Lanka needs money.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And what kind of the very fact that he's going there, and Maldives for that matter, we gave I think soft loan to Maldives, I think about last month or month before that, where they talked about, the Prime Minister went on Twitter and he was talking about that we do not go into loans where we have to, we sell our soul kind of a situation. It does not happen, which has happened to Sri Lanka and which is happening to so many other countries. So I think these are very strategically important countries. If you look at Indonesia, where is Indonesia sitting? Indonesia is sitting next to the Malacca Strait. And there's, I think about 90 kilometers from the Andaman Islands. So right at the mouth of the Malacca Strait. And why is Malacca Strait so important? Because that is where the Chinese oil passes through. That is the sea route that China uses. So
right,
all
absolutely.
These
I think yes. That's the importance of Malacca is not gone down unnoticed to anybody, with the fact that the USS Nimitz and USS Reagan now going ahead and doing the third round of visits, passing through Malacca and then entirely navigating the South China Seas, showcasing their heft and projection. But Preity, last words to you. It is going to be a big momentous occasion at this point of time. time. Ambassador Vora, I'll just come back to you 30 seconds, but I'll just get a comment from Preity. Momentous occasion. Mike Pompeo has gone ahead and emphasized especially the burgeoning friendship between Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He's categorically in his previous statements mentioned how the Houston event where Prime Minister Narendra Modi was welcomed with a huge heart and open arms by President Trump and the thousands of people that had gathered, but then millions and millions of them that went ahead and welcomed and celebrated the coming in of Trump, President Trump in Ahmedabad in that big colossal Namaste Trump event, left Trump spellbounded and the entire American dispensation completely spellbounded and showcased the so much of warmth and love coming in from the country, and that's the crux of the individual interpersonal relations between these two leaders. So perhaps it is going to be Trump administration that is going to be of a better fit for India and the current dispensation in our country as well.
I agree. I think it was Secretary Mike Pompeo who once said, Modi hai to mumkin hai. And he understood the essence of that statement completely. I think, yes, this current administration, obviously in so many different ways, is better for our own foreign policies and for our own internal matters. I think the best thing that they have done is to actually stay out of our internal matters and really recognize what an ally and what an asset we are. And that obviously trickles down to the Indian American citizen as well. And that's why there's this huge shift from of the diaspora from Democratic Party towards the Republican Party, or at least independent.
Right.
And I tell you, this election, normally it's 80-20 to going to the Democrats. I think this election, there will be definitely a shift in the way that Indian Americans will vote.
Okay.
It doesn't matter that.
Yes, Preity, I'm sorry, I'll have to interrupt you. I have very little time left. So the diaspora is going to go ahead and perhaps showcase something that it has not in the past several elections, 2016 as well. But Ambassador Vora, quick 20 seconds and then I'll wrap this up.
I just wanted to make a comment on the Quad, ma'am. Just make no mistake about it. Cold War II or Hot Peace I is upon us. India is the only Quad member that shares a land border with China. And I say this very deliberately, the only one that can effectively confront China on land and by sea. And therefore, these two senior officials are coming for a real meeting, not a virtual meeting, because the threat from China is real and we are going to have a real response to that threat. That is what Trump is all about as far as India is concerned.
Right, absolutely. So threat is real and there's going to be a real meeting, nothing virtual about it. Mike Pompeo and Mark Esper coming down to India in the coming days. It's going to be a big celebratory event that is going to be witnessed in New Delhi yet again.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.